Okay, I'm back on the Thunderchild. I haven't touched her in a little while. Okay, because I've been working on other projects like a spray booth and a few other things. Thunderchild is sitting in the spray booth right now. I'm about to put a future coat on her so I can do some decal work or decal work, depending on who you are. Just wanted to show you what she looks like as of right now. I've finished up almost all the detail painting. I took and filled in all those windows with a micron pen, a black micron pen. You can see that the engine nacelles came out real blue and shiny, and the light reflects off them very well. The ends of the nacelles, you can see them. Let me zoom in on that one because we've got good lighting in here for once. You can see how the black speckle came through the red like I wanted it to on both ends of the nacelles. Zoom back out. Okay. You can see the sensor dish and the paint I did with it just fine in this lighting. Now I really shouldn't zoom in too close because my paint job is not first class on this one. It's probably second grade. Looks great until you get up real close and then you can start seeing all my problems I had with the paint job. But again, at arm's length, this thing looks pretty good. I'm not too upset with how it's turning out. Just wish my paint skills were a tad bit better, but that's why we build, so we can learn and improve ourselves. The impulse engine's in the back. I also did with a micron pen. Okay, that is brown. I tried something with the micron pens. You put down a layer of red, then a layer of yellow, you get yellow. Strange, they don't mix their colors. Okay, I'm gonna give the spray booth a try with some future. I've never sprayed future before. This ought to be interesting. So I'll be back when I'm starting to put the decals on. About to start on the decals on the Thunderchild. I've got the painting done, with the exception of one spot here and there, a few spots here and there. I have to do a little tiny bit of touching up. For the most part, it's done. Gave her a coat of future floor wax. It's the first time I've ever tried that, and it came out pretty good. I mean, way better than I expected. And after putting it on there, I understand why people are using it. It's cheap. It covers the model real well, gives it a nice shiny finish. You know, if I'm building a model of a car, that might be my outer glossy coat, my clear coat for a car, because it is going to be so nice and shiny. Now, the decals again with the water slide. Here's the sheet itself. Okay, lots of holes in it because I've been cutting the decals out. Speaking of cutting the decals out, when you buy decals from someplace like Revel or Polar Lights, you look at the sheet of decals, the decal film, it does not cover the entire sheet. It's only a little bit bigger than the printed outline. They print the decal film on, then they print the decals themselves on top of the film. This is a garage kit model, and they don't print the decal film, then print the decals. They get a solid sheet of decal film and print the decals on that. That means when I cut the decals out, I have to cut them out really close around their borders. Okay? You can see that says USS Thunderchild, and I've cut it really, really close around the edges. That's so I don't have lots of decal film laying around. These need to be trimmed down a little bit more from where they're at, because they fit in a pretty tight spot on the model, so they have to be trimmed down almost precisely to their size. And I went ahead and trimmed this down too. Okay, now let's talk about procedure here. Water slide decals, yes, they are. What I do and what I learned to do with this is I'm going to start by soaking my decal in water. A couple of things I want handy when I'm working with decals. I like a good pair of tweezers. I have them right here. I like a sharp X-Acto knife or hobby knife. I'm using the same one I cut the decals out with. for my decal work. I just started using decal solutions. I have micro sol and micro set. This is a two-part setting. You put down the red one, that prepares the surface of the model. You put your decal down on it, and then you put the blue one down. The blue one gets the decal to conform to the surface of the model, so it looks painted on instead of a decal. Okay? It works pretty good, but I've had some issues with the microsol. The microsol grips the decal and doesn't let it move around. That's good if you put the decal down in its proper place the first time. When I'm working with bigger decals, I don't use it so much. I just use plain straight water on the surface of the model. That allows me to slide the decal in place without tearing it. Okay? When I was using this microsol just to set the decal down, I was tearing decals and ripping them. Alright? When I started using water on the larger decals to set them down, it worked beautifully. The water allows them to slide around. Then I hit it with some micro set. They still set up correctly and they still conform to the surface of the model well. So I only use the microsol on small decals until I get really comfortable and really good at placing my decals. Alright? Now, talking about decals, trimming them. There's a couple tools you can use to trim your decals with. I like to use a drafting triangle. They're clear. They've got good straight edges. You can lay the drafting triangle, let me move the Thunderchild temporarily, down on top of your decal and still be able to see through it. Let's put a decal over here, one I need to trim up. Okay, and let's zoom in some. So I can lay my drafting triangle down on top of the decal. You can't see it at that angle, so let's switch it over here where we should be able to see it. I can lay it down on top of my decal, hold it down firmly, take my hobby knife. I'm not holding it firm enough. Usually I have to push it down on top of the decal. Take my hobby knife and just score along the edge, and that cuts the piece off the decal. Okay? And I just work my way around the outside of the decal doing that, and it looks like I may have cut that one almost too close in because I'm watching the camera instead of what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to quit, go off camera, come back in a second when I'm actually putting decals. Okay, I've got my 3 or 4 decals trimmed down to size. I'm going to take the decals, I soak them in the water and I set them on the side to dry. One thing I've noticed with these decals is they don't suck up the water like some of the commercial grades do. They take longer to come loose off the decal paper, the backing paper. So it's going to take a few minutes for those to loosen up. Probably should have done that before I started pressing record, but hey. Now, while those are loosening up, I have 2 paint brushes here. These 2 paint brushes are only used for those setting solutions. They're cheapos. I got a bag of like 5 of them for $2 at a hobby shop. Okay, they're not great, but for what I'm doing here, they're going to work wonderful for. I don't have to have the best paintbrush in the world for this. Because, you know, we're just putting some solution on the top of the surface of the model to, you know, set the decals down. 2 of the decals I'm working with go here and here, according to the layout. The other 2 go here. Now again, this is the microsol. It's the red one. It's the first part. It's supposed to clean the surface and prepare it for the decal. Break down the oils and stuff from your fingers so you don't have the decal coming up later. I don't know if they prevent yellowing or not. I think that might have something to do with the function of the paint you use. Not sure on that one. I haven't had many decals yellow on me over the years, surprisingly. The only ones that did is a model I built like 35 years ago. And you can understand why that one yellowed, the paint yellowed, the plastic yellowed. That model's just old. Okay, I've got one of them loose. Now, when I go to set the decal, I like to loosen the decal up on the film a little bit, then grip its backing with the tweezers. I set it down on the surface of the model and use my finger to hold it as I drop it off. I don't always use my finger. Once it's in place, I grab my sharp hobby knife and move it around. Now, if it doesn't want to move around, I'm going to get a little bit of water down in there. The water will loosen it up off the surface and allow me to move it around a little bit better, because like I said, the microsol just is grippy on the decals. It just grabs them and holds them in place. It's kind of what you want, but not right away. I don't want to put the decal down and have it just sticking precisely where it dropped. Now, I've been encountering this a lot. I go reach over to grab the decal on the paper and it comes off on my finger. So another use for the knife blade. Be careful when you do this, because knife blades are sharp. I get it under the decal and lift it off my finger so I don't tear it, and then transfer it to the surface of the model. Now that one almost sat down perfectly when I put her over on the model. Okay, so that one's in place. Next up, the registry number, the main registry number. This one's a little bit larger, so I can get away with pulling it off with my fingers. Still got to place her, and again, if she's getting grippy, I'll put some water on there, but I don't want to unless I have to. Now, getting her centered is another trick. I think that's centered enough. Okay, one last, the registry name. And it came up on me off the backing because I let it sit too long. That's alright, it didn't tear, it didn't fold on me. Using the knife blade to position it where I want it. And getting her lined up. I think that's lined up good enough. Let's hold her up where you guys can see it on camera and zoom in a little bit. And there we go. She's got a registry name on her. Now what I'm going to do next is I take some of the micro set and I get that on my brush and I just dab it on top of the decals. Try not to move them. If I move them, I will try and put them back in place with the hobby knife. Sometimes you can put them back in place with the brush, but the brush is nowhere near a precision instrument as a hobby knife. Well, there we go. I put 4 decals on her. I've got probably about 40 more to go. I'll come back when I'm done with the decals and talk about clear coats and get some beauty shots in. Okay. I said in an earlier segment of this video that when you use these solutions, sometimes you get some wrinkling in the decals. Here is a good example of that. If you look at that decal, it's starting to wrinkle up, and it was not wrinkled up when I first put it down. So don't touch them when they do this. This is just what that solution does to the decals. After it's done, they end up laying down pretty snug. Here is a good example of them laying down pretty snug. I got lazy. I didn't cut out every individual little square there. I just put it down on top of the contour. And that decal is starting to snug up, and its companion over there right on the surfaces, leaving the grooves between the squares intact. So this is what I'm talking about. You just leave them alone when they get all wrinkly, and it'll come out okay. I'm almost done. I've just got a few more decals left, and then it's just clear coat and stand.